what was, I watched this since I was little. I was enthralled by it. I didn't understand it as much. But then watching it again, it's a whole new meaning. And what do you think was the magic of MASH to make it the greatest television show?
Jamie Farr.
Loretta has a perfect answer for that. Go ahead, Loretta, because you say it so well.
I call it the magic of MASH. The brilliance and beauty of MASH is that it brought families together. To this day, 50 years later, people come to the table, talk to me and Jamie, and say, my dad passed away a few years ago, and I connect with him every time I watch the show, because I grew up watching it with my dad, and I'm with him again. That's magic. And to think that it came from a situation in comedy, you understand? It's a miracle, it's a magic. And it's a great lesson that this monster that television is, that reaches out and touches lives, can be so wonderful, so positive if we use it that way. It's a great teacher. It's a great, and why I have evolved into this answer. I used to do, before MASH, I did primetime television, Hawaii Five-0. And I did several. I became very good friends with Jack Lord, and I found out something. Jack Lord played a character called Steve McGarrett. He's a tough guy, detective. He solved all the crimes on the island. He never allowed anybody to, not anybody, he never smoked on camera. Never. I don't want some kid out there thinking that's what makes me a tough guy. I don't want that guy thinking, that kid thinking that that's why he's, rough and a detective. Because it's a lie. And I don't want them to think that. And I want them to grow up with that idea. So Steve McGarrett never smoked on camera. Jack Lord was a two-packer. Do you see what I'm saying? What he cared about was what he was putting out there. Don't do what I do. Do what I say, So Marie, his one and only love wife of years, they were having a big anniversary coming up. I think it was like 30, 35 years, whatever. He said, okay, Marie, hit me. They ask anything you want. You want a Rolls Royce, a trip around the world, you want a boat, what David, it's yours. Well, life check, whatever you want. What do you want, honey? Jack, I want you to give up smoking. He said, I can save a fortune, but he said, that's all you want. I don't want to save. He took the pack of cigarettes from his pocket, crumpled it up, threw it away, and he never smoked again. That's honor, and that's what I feel we gave the audience. You became members of our family. We embraced you. We trusted you. You trusted us. We were the world's best babysitter. Because we by osmosis, taught kids valuable lessons and gave them values. And by the time they grew up to be old enough to find out why this guy with hairy legs was wearing high heels, they began to understand love and passion and trying to help, but wanting to get out of this terrible place. And the humor was intelligent. We never insulted you with some hokey pokey. The humor came out of being in a place that was so insane. We had to be crazy to live there, to be there, to exist. That's a great lesson. We weren't funny for its own sake. We weren't like telling jokes. We were trying to exist and do a terrible job in a terrible place. And so in order to survive, we were crazy and we made you laugh. But you got it. You understood us. And we understood you, because for 50 years later, we're still talking to people, young people, young people. I get mail written in crayon.
Wow.
I'll have to stop writing you.
Oh, I did think you graduated with ball pen. But that's what Jamie loves my answer. I really think that's what happened. You became our family, and we became your family.
Now, Loretta, you just said that you get commentary from so many young people, and there were so many of us that were caught by the show when we were young. And I was 9 years old the first time I was flipping channels in 1977, 78, and here's this guy walking across a military compound completely naked except for combat boots and captain's bars. And somehow I was hooked. But
That's what happens when you have a terrific body.
Yeah, fortunately, Jamie had the legs for it.
but what this show that was about war and had drama and comedy going on at the same time, and these womanizing doctors and a gambling priest and this father-like CEO, what was it there that could catch people that were below the audience that it was aimed
Yeah,
at?
but the war wasn't, the war. You started to say it was about war, and there was a list of things that really was not what we were about. It was a backdrop almost. It was about these incredible heroes of the medical profession. I mean, what they did. And we're playing real people who did that. A word about the nurses, because they're in Korea, were not drafted. They didn't do that in the 50s. Those women were there by volunteer. They volunteered to serve, to stand in blood for 18 hours in a place on the globe that is colder than any other place in the winter and hotter than any other place in the summer. And the killer in those 3 years was number 1, frostbite, number 2, snake bite, number 3, the police action. You notice I don't call it a war, even though we bled like it was a war. So that's talking about these women, these incredible heroes. And we were playing those people, the surgeons who felt their skills were deteriorating, doing this meatball surgery, trying to hold bodies together. So that's basically what it was about. And the humor came out of this nightmare. We're working in this nightmare. Yeah, they do crazy things. They drink a lot. I worked at 9/11 as a volunteer. I lived in New York, I still do, but I would go home with various people who had volunteered to be there. I went home with the coroner one day and I said, why are you here? What do you do here exactly? He said, I identify body parts. Nice, yeah, well, I said, whoa, wow. How do you do that? He said, I stay very drunk. I go home, I drink myself into, sleep, a coma. He said, I'll go into rehab as soon as I'm finished with my work here. That's how I don't listen to the radio, I don't watch television, I don't walk the streets where you had posters everywhere. Have you seen this boy, this girl? Have you seen? See, he would not walk the streets, and he was not a part of that. He isolated himself and did his job. And these are the kind of heroes that we're talking about. So, and I felt that about the cast. The actors who embodied these people were of such value in terms of having values. They were the most ideal choices to play those people. That's not what I felt the show was really about.
So you spoke about the nurses, and you were the best nurse in Korea.
You bet. Yes. When I took the job, I said, understand one thing. I am going to be the best head nurse in Korea. Right? And they say the yes.
And the thing that's great is that you really fought for the integrity of that character. When they wanted you to like fire a nurse. Yeah. And they wanted you to fire a nurse because she was pretty. Yeah. And you were like, no. And when I read that, I was like, this is why this show stands out, because the characters were all like that.
Yes, all the characters had such integrity on their own. I mean, the actors, they had brought to those characters their own brand of values and integrity, you know.
And speaking of high heels, you wore dresses of a lot of famous people.
Yes.
Can you tell us about the Ginger Rogers?
Oh, the Ginger Rogers one, yeah, it's one of my favorite stories. Usually, the person who picked out the outfits that I had to wear in the show had terrible taste. First of all, he was a talent scout for the LA Dodgers baseball team, and then he got into the wardrobe department. So they would go into the 20th Century Fox wardrobe department, and they'd find an outfit that some famous actress had worn in the movie, Carmen Miranda, or Alice Faye, or Betty Grable. Well, they found one that Ginger Rogers wore. It was a gold lame dress, and we were doing a takeoff on Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers in the movie. And I was supposed to be, of course, Ginger Rogers. I had the gold lame outfit on. And Kelly Nakahara, who was Nurse Kelly, and they were supposed to be Fred Astaire. And we did the number called Dancing Cheek to Cheek. Well, the show aired, you got a lot of laughs, and the next day I was in the commissary at Fox, and who was there doing a guest spot on Love Boat but Ginger Rogers? She came over to see me, she said, Jamie, I saw you, and you had that dress on that I wore in that Fred Astaire movie, and I want to tell you something. It looked a hell of a lot better on you than it did on me. Loretta was also talking about the integrity of our program, and I don't know if you knew this or not, but MASH was going to be canceled after the very first year. It was on Sunday night opposite The Wonderful World of Disney, and we were number 57 out of 65 shows. So Bill Paley, the chairman of CBS, was going to cancel the show, and his wife, Babe Paley, said, you know, I like that show. Why don't you just move it to another time spot? So he said, okay, let's give it a try. Well, and he moved it to the greatest night in the history of television. Saturday night, All in the Family, MASH, Mary Tyler Moore, the Bob Newhart Show, and the Carol Burnett Show. And no one went out to the movie theaters, no one went out to restaurants. It was the greatest night in the history of television. That's why we're still here.
But don't you love that it took a woman to keep it?
So, Jamie, you were hired to be on MASH for a day.
Yes.
And then your character just kept asking you back until you became a...
You know, this stupid business, you know, this is my 70th year in this business, and I've been discovered and rediscovered so many times, and usually I think, oh boy, I found myself a home there, then you get fired because they want to bring somebody else in or something. So at this particular time, I wasn't working. I was hired by Gene Reynolds, our producer of the show. I had done an F Troop that he had directed, where I played a comic stand-up Indian for the Hakawi tribe. You know, they gave me all those terrible lines, instead of take my wife, take my squaw, please, you know, those kind of jokes. Well, when Gene saw an actor that he liked, or an actress, he would put his name or her name down in a little black book. And I was out of work at this particular time, and my agent called and said, hey, Gene Reynolds, they got a new TV series, it's coming on, it's called MASH. It's from the movie. Have you seen it? I said, no, I don't know anything about it. He said, well, there's a part in it for you. It's just got a few lines. It pays $250 for the day. So, boy, $250. I paid the rent, you know, buy groceries. And things. So I said, okay. I said, what's the part about it? He says, well, they'll tell you when you get there. So I said, oh, okay. I didn't know what the dialogue was. So I show up, and Gene takes me into the trailer. And there's these woman Army Corps uniform on, and these huge high heels. The brand name was El Grande, so to give you an idea. And I thought, oh, I'm dressing with an actress. He says, no, those are yours. Put them on. That hell kind of part is this? So I put it on, and of course I got the hairy, bold legs, and he starts laughing. He takes me down the set. Loretta and Alan and everybody's out there. They all start laughing. I still don't know what the dialogue is. They didn't tell me. And anyway, I had a few lines to say to the general that was leading. I said, "Oh, who goes there? Oh, Corporal Cleaner's still trying to get out of the Section 8 or whatever the heck it was." And I had 4 lines, 5 lines, and then at the end of the show, supposedly I show up naked, you know, and the Colonel Blake says, "Geez, at least put a dress on or something." So I thought, wow, that's great. I had $250. I had no idea that I was being called back. So I got called back that first year, I think, 4 or 5 times. The second year, I think I did half of the shows. And then the third year is when they finally put me on under contract. And I can tell you, as I said, I've been in this business for 70 years. And this is the finest cast I have ever worked with in my entire life. And Loretta will testify to all of the wonderful people that were on that show. Not only our cast members, but all the guest members and the mini MASH group that we had. And I got to tell you, Loretta's worked with a lot of famous people, and I have too. You know, we've worked with Lucille Ball, Bob Hope, Red Skelton, Bob Hope, and Daddy Kay, and all of them, and some of the biggest names, William Holden, and Glenn Ford, and Max von Sydow, and all kinds of actors. And I'll let Loretta tell the story about what Harry Morgan said about the cast. Harry Morgan, remember, has been in this business for years, worked with Spencer Tracy and Frederick March and all the great names in show business. And this is the honor that we have.
If you were to take a poll of our cast, and we loved each other, just absolutely. If you were to say, yeah, but who's your favorite of the cast? I promise you, without talking to them, every one of them would say Harry. Harry was everything to everybody. He was every man. He was my confessor, my father, my buddy, my colleague, my friend. He was everything to me. So we were very close. We spent weekends together, he and his first wife. We'd go to a restaurant, he'd come to my house, I'd cook or whatever. So I'm saying, we'd work together all week and then we'd spend the weekend together. Loved this man. So now, it is the last show of the season. We've wrapped. This is the last show of MASH. And we're bussed to the commissary where they've got all these chairs set up like here, and the press with the flashes and the thing and the stuff. And we're on a dais, and we're all getting up to give our first feeling about, my gosh, I don't come back here tomorrow. Harry said, well, to preface, Harry did about 110 films. Most of them black and white classic movies. Most of them. Although Harry would joke about the loonies you never heard about. You know, he said, you never hear about the bad ones. So he did 110 films and 8 television series. And he said, I've done, I think, 8 or these, and I think 7 or 8 television series. And, you know, endings are, you know, tough, but you walk away and you go on to the next job. But this is different. Said to these people are different. And it's going to be difficult to leave this cast, my friends. And he, you know, there's nothing worse than watching Harry Morgan tear up. I mean, it gets me every time. And that's how we felt. I mean, it was like no other show that any of us had ever been party to. I remember bringing a friend of mine to one of our rap parties, and he was he was looking around, he was just amazed, and he said to me, he was an actor, he said, "You guys, it's like you're coming back from a vacation and you're going to school and then we did this and we went to the lake and geez, it's like school kids. Like I've never seen anything like that's what we were. It was like this family. What did you do for your vacation?" And you don't always get that. I remember people were talking about it and somebody said, "Oh, well, if you work with the same person for so many years," I said, "Listen, lady, I know some casts that don't even speak to each other. It's got nothing to do with seeing you every day. It doesn't necessarily mean you fall in love the way we did." I think I fell in love with that first cast from Hello. And we were so cold. We were up at the ranch. It was the first shoot was outdoors. Very cold. And Wayne and I were cuddled together. He was blue. And his nose was dripping, and it was an icicle. I mean, it was cold. It was so cold. And Wayne and I were talking about it. We said, we have a theory that we became close immediately, because how can you huddle so intimately for hours, keeping warm, and not get to know a person? But it was special from day one. And nicely enough, they recognized the new blood coming in, and nicer even, we knew while it was happening that it was happening, because sometimes you miss that present. You look back and you reflect, and you go, "Oh God, that was so great." But we knew we were experiencing this wonder, this wonderful time. I was waiting for the light with Alan one day. We're waiting for the lights and or the sound. We're always waiting. And we were behind a bunch of boxes. It was 5 o'clock, Charlie. We were hiding for this lone airplane. We all came in, did nothing. But we were behind the boxes, and we looked at each other. We got helmets, you know. And I smiled at him, and he smiled at me. And he said, "Loretta, we are so lucky to be us." And we have always felt that, always. And that's a dream job. That's a job. You're going to work every day to see your best friends, and you're going to laugh a lot, you know. What? And they're paying you for it, not much, but they're paying you to do this wonderful thing. But I think overall, what we get back from you is divine. It's sacred. It's a blessing. How you feel about us, truly. And thank you from Jamie and me and the rest of the cast. Thank you for how you feel about us.
Can I add a little bit about Harry? He had a wonderful sense of humor, Harry Morgan did. And this is one of my favorite stories. He tells us, Loretta knows the story. He did a lot of movies with James Stewart. Any movie that James Stewart was in, he would always ask for Harry to be in it. And this was a Western movie, and Harry Morgan and Jack Ewan and Steve Brody were the bad guys in the movie. It's the end of the picture. And they're hiding out in the saloon. And Jimmy Stewart, the townspeople, are coming down the street, and they have guns with them. And he comes up and they say, "Okay, you can fight us, or you can ride out of town." So Harry says, "Well, we can't fight the whole town. We'll have to ride out." So they walk out of the saloon. Jack Ewan gets on his horse. Steve Brody gets on his horse. And as Harry puts his foot in the stirrup, the saddle falls off. And they go, "Cut, cut, cut." The director says, "Harry, we gotta get this. We're losing the sun tonight." We'll get it. Okay, take two. Jimmy Stewart in the crowd going down the street. "You can fight us, or you can ride out of town." Harry said, "We can't fight him. We gotta ride out of town." So they go down to the saloon. Jack Ewan gets on his horse. Steve Brody gets on his horse. As Harry tries to get on his horse, the horse runs away. "Harry, we'll get it. Okay, we'll get it. Okay, take 3. Jimmy Stewart down the street with a gun. "Okay, you can fight us, or you can ride out of town." "Oh, we can't fight the entire town. Let's ride out." So he goes out. Jack Ewan gets on his horse. Steve Brody gets on his horse, and the horse runs away again. Harry turns to the camera and he says, "Oh, that hell with it. Let's fight him." We did an episode called The Time.
Tontine, I think it was called. And Harry's buddies from another war had made an oath. The Tontine is like an oath.
Right.
And they revered this bottle of old cognac. And the survivor of their group, we kept getting passed from person to person. Anyway, it got to Harry, and he was going to be the last one of his group. And so he invites us into the tent, and he toasts his old comrades and his new ones looking at us. And we're all bawling. I mean, we're like, we can't stand up. We're just, but the camera's on Harry. He's a single, you do that first. Then you have to worry about getting the crazy animals in the other, the cast. And they're on Harry, and we're all blubbering, and it's one take Harry, cut, print, that was beautiful Harry. He's very emotional. Now we turn the camera around to us. Harry is all ready to have some fun and games watching us. And the twinkling blue eyes start, and we know we're in trouble. We're never going to keep a straight face. Did they make him leave? They told him to get out there.
Yeah, he was a pixie, a real gremlin, Harry.
An elf, a minnow, I don't know what he was a mixture of all those things, but God, he could make you cry and turn around and make you laugh. Mike Farrell is 6'4", a Marine. I saw him reduced to tears, lying on the floor, laughing so hard he couldn't breathe. And it was Harry. And it would be nothing. He would just like write, and then that's a funny line. Harry would do gestures that would make us collapse, and you didn't know why. He was a devil, and he was an angel. God, I miss him every day.
Yeah, we love
He
him.
was just brilliant.
And incidentally, a lot of people that have served in the military will come up and tell us that. And some of the people, you may or may not have known this. Some of you may have come up to us and talked to us about it. But several of our cast members were in the military for real. Mike Farrell served as a Marine. Alan Alda served in the U.S. Army. William Christopher, Father Mulcahy, served in the U.S. Army, served in Germany. And I served in the U.S. Army, and I served in Japan and Korea. So, and believe me, I was in Korea, and the set that we had, it was absolutely perfect, all the way down to, thank goodness, they didn't have the honey bucket smell there, okay? Honey bucket is where they bury human feces in the ground, to grow their vegetables and that. But I got to tell you, the terrain was perfect where we shot that. That's exactly what that looked like in Korea.
When I went, I shot a documentary called The Forgotten War. And we were I was at the DNC, can you imagine? And when I looked at those hills, and I was waiting for the choppers to come from Loretta. They said, "What's the matter, Loretta?" I said, "I'm having deja vu," which is improper. That's like you're seeing it again. I've never been here. This is, oh my God! It was, the producers were so good. They were so accurate. Gene and Larry went to Korea. I mean, we had such production values. Just. Yeah, I remember. I was just about to do a tape, and my dresser, I loved her dearly. She was Turkish. I called her my Turkish delight, Sayla. Sayla ran in like the last minute. They're going to say, ready for a tape, and she adjusted my dog tags. And Gene Reynolds was directing. He said, "Thank you, Sayla. That made all the difference." It was such a family,
Okay, we're only gonna have time for a couple questions, so whoever wants to ask a question, well, they're lining up though. So I read that when you after that episode, it was kept quiet until like
I did.
right at the end, last minute. How did that feel? I mean, how does that feel for the cast?
You know something, these are actors, we're actors. It would have been the same thing, you would have seen the same thing, we would have the same, only we would have been prepared to do what we did. However, the reason they did that is because our Mac was leaving. So we were gonna have to go through a week of being blue and sad and, and that's what Larry Gilbert told me. He said, we didn't want to put everybody through that. Everybody loved Mac. When Mac left, he said to me, I know I'll never be in anything this good again. I just want to strike out on my own, be number one of a one show. And I said, but Mac, you are number one here. But he just really felt he had to do that. But we were losing him. He's the funniest man in the world. And I think they probably did a good thing. We would have been unhappy all week. And certainly Mac would have been. Mac did not know about it. And we had a party, we had a rap party, and he couldn't stay. He was so, part of him died, you see. It's not the crazy actor world, but the truth is, you put your life and your soul and your heart into what you're doing. If you're doing it well, that's what it requires. And that's what we did, and that's what Mac did, and he felt like a part of him had just died over the Sea of Japan, and also that he would never be back to stage 9. The stage 9 just became, it was a home, and so it was very deeply meaningful. What did you think about that?
Well, the thing is that they kept that page. Loretta and all of us thought it was the end of the episode. Goodbye, Henry Blake, and we said goodbye to him on the helipad, and he flew out. And so Loretta and we didn't have anything to do. The next day, we got a telephone call that said, "Hey, there's another scene to do." We said, "Another scene?
The tag.
Yeah, we just did that."
They decided to run a tag.
Yeah.
Lied to us. They had this.
Yeah, and so when we got in, they didn't tell the rest of the cast members, I don't even think they told the crew, that they called us together and they took us separately to show us this last page where Blake gets killed over the Sea of Japan. His plane was shot down and everybody died on it. Well, some of the cast members were terribly happy about that, as you well know, right? Gary was upset about it. So there was a discussion that went on and on. But as Larry and Gene said, look, that's what war is about. War is about losing people that you love. And that's what we want to show to the finish. So what they did is they had Gary, and Gary did this in one take.
Yes.
And when you see that final episode, that one that Henry Blake was on, the only people that knew about it was the main cast. The extras, the atmosphere and everything in that operating room had no idea of what Gary was about to say when he came in. So when you see that scene, those are honest reactions that you see, even though they had the masks on their faces. And every time I watch that, I just marvel at it because you see the expression in their eyes, that the surprise that they actually got rid of Henry Blake, totally, in terms of losing his life. And so it is, yeah.
And of course, Gary was brilliant. When he came in, he couldn't, because if you back up and you watch him say goodbye at the helicopter, you can see how much his character loves that character. Loved that character. And that was difficult enough to say goodbye. And then he had all of his come back up again. So, in case of point, we've never lied to you, and that's what keeps us a family. Everything you saw was honest and truthful, and it was how we really felt. And that's a very bonding issue. You trust us.
Okay, we have a long line and not that much
I
longer.
will keep it
One
very
question.
brief. I'll keep it very brief. I just want to say thank you to Loretta and Jamie for your work as a show that's left us so many laughs and smiles and tears and poignant moments over the years that we were on here and 50 years later into the future. Just thank you so much. That's